you so much. Mouthful of a title for a presentation, but yes, we're here to talk to you today about a group that we have formed around CVD. So let's get to it. We'll do a couple short introductions, and then Tomo will take it away. My name is Justin Murphy. I come from the US. I work for the US government for CISA, Vulnerability Analyst. Not only am I involved with CVD, Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure, also enjoy standardization. I was just giving a talk next door about the Common Security Advisory Framework. Also enjoy SBOM, VEX, and of course, international cooperation, collaboration gives me opportunities to hang out with great people like Tomo and come and talk to awesome audiences like you. So, Tomo, you want to introduce yourself?
All right. I am Tomo Ito from JPCERT Coordination Center. My title is Global CVD Project Lead. I've been working on CVD for several years, and I have passion for CVD, SBOM, VEX, just like Justin, CVE, and international cooperation as well. So that's me. Okay, in today's presentation, we're going to talk about this CVD-COP, the Global Community of Practice on Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure, which we recently established. We're going to talk about the group. We're going to first talk about the CVD overview, and then we're going to talk about the group, Global CVD-COP, objectives, the reasons, the memberships, the opportunities and challenges, vision, future work, and we would like to have a discussion with you after explaining things. So first, I'm going to touch on CVD a little bit. Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure, CVD. This is basically a process of gathering, coordinating, and disclosing of vulnerability information. It is a global good practice, so it's not only Japan or US thing. Often, many different stakeholders get involved in this process. This is called a multi-party CVD, and in this, vulnerability information flows through the global product supply chain, and MPCVD, multi-party CVD complexity, equals to supply chain complexity. That's why we're working on these kind of things. And the importance of CVD is increasing because without this process, let's say if this process does not occur properly, the vulnerability information will not come out to the surface and will not be disclosed to the public. And even if it comes out to the public, without this proper CVD process, the information will be out there without any mitigation, such as patch or updates being prepared. So that's going to be a 0 day, and that's not good. So CVD is important, and many people are realizing the importance of it. CVD process or CVD readiness is incorporated into different regulations, for example, in the EU, and many in the context of vulnerability management and stuff like that. CVD has been is being discussed heavily currently. So the basic stakeholders and information flow in CVD. I would like to ask you, how many of you have heard of the term CVD? Could you raise your hand? Oh, that's a lot. What about how many of you know what goes on in CVD specifically? Not too many, maybe not. So okay, take less. Yeah. So thank you very much. So I'm gonna touch a little bit. I'm gonna explain a little bit about the basic CVD process. So maybe one back.
Sorry,
yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Done.
So basically, there are people like reporters, finders. These are people that find vulnerabilities, report vulnerabilities. They can be the same person, but often they're different. And there's people like vendors who are product owners, so they are responsible for creating patches and all that, updates. And there are users who use the product. So these are the basic stakeholders in CVD. And then in the process, for example, from the left, you can see the reporter. Let's say reporter finds a vulnerability and reports it to the vendor. Vendor negotiates, coordinates with the reporter. They prepare the fix. And then once the fix is ready, vulnerability information goes to the public in the form of vulnerability advisory and the users. And then users can know about the information about vulnerability. And sometimes there are people like CVD coordinators. They get involved in CVD cases. So people like Justin, like CISA, from CISA or JPCERT, we're CVD coordinators. And I'm going to explain about CVD coordinator later more. But yeah, basically CVD coordinators, these are people who support CVD cases to make sure the CVD process goes well, to make sure the information goes out to the public properly. So yeah, sometimes these people, CVD coordinators, get into CVD cases as well.
So when you're talking about vulnerability discovery and then vulnerability coordination, and ultimately the goal is once that vulnerability is found and analyzed, the goal is to fix it and then communicate that information out to the affected stakeholders. Tomo mentioned, and he did a very good job of outlining kind of the different process and the different roles and stakeholders involved generally in a CVD process. When we release that information, it usually comes in the form of an advisory. So we have a collage of variety of advisories from different vendors here. We wanted to try to represent everyone, as many people we could at least. And you see, I mean, they appear different, but in their essence, structurally they may even be slightly different, but they contain some really important basic information, or at least we expect it to contain certain types of information. Of course, affected products. That's going to be a really, really important one when it comes to regards to the vulnerability, what product or products it affects. Description, this may come in a couple different forms, right? Description of the advisory itself and the kind of information it's going to be communicating, description of the vulnerability or vulnerabilities, plural, description of the remediations or the patch or whatever is going to be applied to fix it. Information about some types of metrics or scores, also some type of categorization to help understand the vulnerability a little bit better in terms of also its criticality. Impact, very, very, very important, especially wherever you fall. At CISA, this would be extremely important as we're dealing with our nation's critical infrastructure. Very, very, very important part, and that is going to be how to fix it. The solution, whether that's remediation guidance, maybe a patch, a workaround, however whatever form that comes in, that's extremely important information. Sometimes the different stakeholders, we will recognize them if they wish, especially like a reporter or a researcher. Sometimes they don't want to wish to be recognized, but usually if they would like to, we try our best to make that happen. And then something really important to make sure that all the different stakeholders involved are tracking. We have a vulnerability identifier. The most commonly and most widely used and globally used is CVE. I also wanted to do, we're starting to see the human readable versions is what is typical, but we're starting to see organizations use machine-readable versions of security advisories as well. So a standardized machine-readable format, such as the Common Security Advisory Framework. I had to do one shameless plug of CSAF while I was here. So what we're really here to talk to you about today is our group, the Global Community of Practice on CVD. When it comes to the vulnerability discovery, coordination, and remediation, it's truly a global issue. It's truly a global process. When you're talking about CISA, from our standpoint, we're worried about our nation's critical infrastructure. Each nation represented here, FIRST is such a great a conference that's such a great representation of that. Each one of us come from independent nations. We have policies, laws, regulations that are guiding and even directly or indirectly referencing the importance of CVD that we're having to abide by or take steps to abide by. We all come together at the first conference, all our individual nations, because we're interconnected. One of the ways that we're very interconnected is the products that we're using. And so while we're independent and maybe we have different nuances that are a result from like cultural differences, regional differences, regulatory differences, and things like that, what we're finding and what we found through the formation of our group, and we're going to continue to talk about that group, is while we have these differences, the way we think about CVD seems to be pretty similar. And so how can we come together to harmonize and also get better? Because Tomo is going to talk about the coordinator role and why that's significant and how that is unique in the CVD process. We're in a unique position to help, we believe, to make a CVD process globally better.
Okay. And about the current state of CVD, as Johnston mentioned, CVD is global. As it says on the screen, it's a good thing. Difference is a good thing, but present challenges. For example, so as he said, we do things pretty much, we do CVD pretty much similar, but at the same time, there are differences. For example, one of the differences, or two of the differences, will be like cultural gaps and language barriers. These are more like issues, but for cultural gaps, for example, there are cases where like a company, like how a company in this country operates or makes decisions regarding like security could be different from like, your country. And as for language barriers, as us, JPCERT, we would often receive requests from vendors in Japan because they would often receive reports, vulnerability reports from overseas reporters. The report comes in English, and they may be able to read it like through some technology, but it is really hard for them to communicate in English with the external parties, so we get involved. Things like that happen. So there are definitely some cultural gaps and language barriers that exist. So therefore, cooperation, collaboration, and harmonization is a must.
And another part of the CVD process, Tomo briefly mentioned it, is, of course, we, as coordinators at least, are talking to the reporters, the finders, the researchers. We analyze vulnerabilities as part of the CVD process. We, of course, publish advisories. We reviewed some advisories. An important part of that is that vulnerability identification, because that's a really key piece to make sure that all the different stakeholders are tracking the same information and there's consistency throughout the process. The CVE program is an extremely important part of the CVD process. If you've seen any presentation about the CVE program over the years, since the, and many of you in this room are probably CNAs, CVE numbering authorities. What we have seen is an increase in vulnerabilities, an increase in CVEs, and an increase in CNAs. You could probably put the increase in CNAs in front of increase of CVEs because an increase of those CVEs has been a result of having the vendors and national coordinator being in the CNA program. What we have heard this week and in the past, when we talk about the different stakeholders in this process, is that the importance of the CVE program is very important in CVD, but it's very, very important as we are increasing the number of CNAs that they understand and are getting better at the CVD process as a whole. CVE assignment is a key and important part of the CVD process, but I wouldn't say it's a small part. It's such an important part, but it is kind of a small part of a broader process. And so one thing that we have had in our discussions, it's kind of lucky we had our presentation later in the week, is what we are hearing is for the CVE program to grow and enhance the other parts of the ecosystem and vulnerability management, is that we need to get better at CVD, which is a real motivation for the formation of our group, the Global Community of Practice on CVD. Tomo, you want to talk a little bit about the coordinator role and kind of the uniqueness about it?
Sure. So I've told you that there are people like who are called CVD coordinators. For example, JPCERT, CISA, we are both coordinators. This is basically the CVD coordinator is basically third-party coordinator for CVD. So CVD coordinators support CVD cases, and when things happen or problems arise, we act as mediator, provide opinions when needed. And for us, we would often act as like English translator as well. So basically, we support and often lead CVD cases. So we're not just supporting, but we would often lead CVD cases as well, especially in cases of like MP-CVD, the multi-party CVD process that I've touched on previously. So that's the coordinators. And different government agencies are CVD coordinators. And there are services such as bug bounty services or bug bounty programs that can also be called CVD coordinator as well.
So we put this up as kind of something to laugh about a little bit. We're here to talk to you about this new group we formed, the Global Community Practice on CVD. You may be thinking another group, another working group, another group of people maybe trying to address problems that other groups have already or are already working on. An important aspect of our group, and Tomo just kind of touched on the coordinator role. We are a group of government agencies or international government agencies. We're a group of national cybersecurity agencies, national CERTs, or even private sector companies who are doing direct work for their governments in relation to CVD. So we have even some diversity within our group and just their role in the CVD process. But what's really key to our group is that we refer to ourselves as a group of coordinators. One thing that's unique is for that role of coordinator, we kind of act as neutral facilitators in our role. We think that that's a really important part of, I talked about at the beginning, is the goal of this process, the CVD process, is to take the vulnerabilities that are discovered, fix those vulnerabilities, and communicate that information as efficiently as possible, as accurately as possible, so that actionable information can be applied for the downstream users. That is the goal of the CVD process. So we serve as that role as neutral facilitators. We, especially in government agencies, national coordinators, we serve as a unique role where we are in touch with our different regions, our different communities, and we can provide those bridges that are needed for the different stakeholders in the process. We enable that global coordination, but we also are process managers. We are the ones that push when it needs to be pushed or slow down when it needs to be slowed down. And we hope that it doesn't come to this, but the fact of the matter is that it does. We also serve as de-escalators. And so we have a unique perspective and a unique role in the community. And so that is why we felt there was a lot of value in bringing together a group of coordinators from our unique perspective to focus on how can we get better collectively at CVD. There's a lot of great work that's been done over the years, dating back to the early 2000s, mid-2000s. We have from all over the globe some great guidance and frameworks being put out around CVD. The CERT guide to coordinated vulnerability disclosure, which has really kind of been the ground truth, at least for CVD in the US. Even NISA put out a document in 2023 about developing national vulnerability programs. We have the ISO standard, which this is not an official announcement because I just found out about it this week, but there are rumblings that they are looking at updating the ISO standard for CVD. You may be wondering, and I'm going to answer an anticipated question, why we have a vulnerability coordination SIG. Why did you not just revitalize that group or repurpose that group? Why did you create this new working group? We did think about doing it under FIRST. That was a discussion. I don't know if Art's in here, but we talked to Art, the co-chair for the Vulnerability Coordination SIG. And ultimately, we felt like it was best to form our own group. However, we are always looking to ways that we can collaborate with the different parts of the ecosystem and the community. We know the B.Sc community has involvement in this, and there's a B.Sc SIG. When we were at VulnCon, we got that feedback that, hey, we like what you're doing, we're all for it, but we want to have a part of that. So we're always looking for ways that we can stay independent within our group, but also collaborate with the other parts of the ecosystem. Tomo has had some success, and I'm going to give him the opportunity to talk about the JPCERT CVD working group.
Yeah, thank you. There's this community of CSAF of Asia Pacific called JPCERT, and we have formed a CVD working group in that community as well. And on the right, you can see the members that's participating. And there's also another member that recently joined, which is ACSC from Australia. And this group, this is a working group on CVD. We discuss CVD as well, but we focus more strictly on Asia-Pacific regions, and we're trying to find out the challenges of Asia-Pacific, of the region, Asia-Pacific. So that's the difference that we have, and it's been working well. So thanks to all the members that's participating.
Yeah, so Tomo, he's being modest. He actually served as an inspiration for this broader group, for sure, with the work that he was been leading with the JPCERT working group. I wanted to also, those documents that I just reviewed, I'll flash back to them real quick. All of these contain language, and I extracted a few of those quotes here that emphasize the importance and need for CVD to be grown internationally, to be looked at on an international scale, to be, when you're talking about best practices, harmonization, that there really needs to be some attention done because, once again, we believe that in the role that we're in as coordinators, and the fact that in some ways we act as that bridge and we touch all the different parts of the process, that we can serve in that unique role in helping the overall CVD community to get better. If we, as national coordinators, government agencies conducting CVD, if we get better, the whole ecosystem gets better at CVD. And we also, if you remember when I talked about the CVE program and the discussions we've had this week with some of the CVE folks, it's if CVD gets better, CNAs get better at CVD, and assigning CVEs, the CVE program is enhanced as well. So we see this as support and justification for the formation of our group and ultimately what we are hoping to do. You'll see this first bullet point. Another reason we formed this group was actually from the National Cybersecurity Strategy. I have it crossed out somewhat as a, not a joke, but this was a document that was the catalyst for forming our group. All that it did was task CISA for forming this group. We informed this group with the intention, though, to not have a single point of failure. So this group, we do have it designed. We have a group charter, and we have a leadership structure where there's co-chairs, functions like your typical working group. No one organization or one entity does this group rely on, which is a really great thing. So if any organization, for some reason, decides they don't want to be a part of it, it will still function. If any organization wants to join, we'll talk about that a little bit later, we can have you join. But the catalyst for the formation of this group came from that strategical document. The continued work is now independent and developed by the community of practice itself. And Tomo can talk a little bit more about sort of our vision and objectives and purpose for what we see for the group.
Thank you. So do you want to go to the vision or you want to talk about the...
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So basically, for the vision, as it says, our vision is a world where nations work collaboratively to advance coordinated vulnerability disclosure readiness, establishing strong relationships and communication channels, ensuring the timely mitigation of vulnerabilities and reducing societal risks. So basically, working together, collaborating, working for CVD readiness for the ecosystem, establishing strong relationships, and definitely social risk reduction, society's risk reduction. That's what we're going to do. So again, getting together and to get better is our vision right here.
That's the simple way we kind of liked referring to it, is we're getting together, get better, to increase our CVD readiness as a global community. We started this group in the end of 2024. December 5th was our first meeting. It was the first Wednesday of the month, so we decided, why don't we keep meeting on the first Wednesday of every month? And we've done so ever since. We have our upcoming meeting on July 2nd. Leadership structure, how that looks right now, and we'll have rotation of leadership is the intention, but for the first year, we're having Tomo and myself are serving as co-chairs. We have our colleague from the NCSC UK, Ollie, who is also serving as one of our co-chairs. I like, too, that we're representative of different, kind of equally distributed in a sense, very symmetric across the globe. We have a community charter, and we... one thing I do want to emphasize, because we did get a lot of questions and continue to get a lot of questions about the membership. We are limiting the membership to government agencies, to national coordinators, or entities, we have it phrased here, government entities who are performing work for the government in an official capacity. So JPCERT would be a great example of that. So if you're wanting to join the group specifically, there is a limitation on you have to have that connection to being like a national cybersecurity agency, international government, national CERT, something like that. In terms of our collaboration opportunities, please still come talk to us. If you're a vendor, if you're part of the CERT community, if you're a downstream user, any part of the CVD process, and if you have interest in CVD, we still want to talk to you and find ways to collaborate with you. We already, this is not any sort of official announcement, but we already have some things in the work with setting up and facilitating those types of interactions. And so be on have your ear out for an announcement in the coming months about that. Our participation, this gives you an idea of the agencies represented. We have 17 different organizations representing, I think, about 14, 15 different countries or regions. We are always looking for increased membership, more involvement. Wherever you fall in your CVD process or your involvement in CVD as a government agency, a national CERT, please come talk to us about joining our group. While there is some element of exclusivity from the standpoint of our membership, it's meant to be very inclusive for that group of government agencies, national CERTs, national cybersecurity agencies. So please come talk to us. We need more voices. We need more opinions. We need also, as Tomo pointed out, because of wherever you may fall and whatever your cultural, regional, regulatory guidance, we need those different voices and different opinions to be brought to the table.
Definitely, and I would like to emphasize that different voices even from people who are not from government agencies or CERTs is definitely important, and we're looking forward to hearing like voices from you. So please keep that in mind. Yeah.
You want to talk about just quickly the challenges?
For the discussion, basically, yeah. So I'm gonna talk about the challenges spotted thus far in this group. So different CVD for different members. So we have different members coming into the group. We are talking about CVD. We have like each CVD on our mind. So basically, there are like slightly differences, like what the focuses are, or what they feel is important in CVD, and stuff like that. So CVD is different for each member. So we're trying to organize that at this moment, and they're of course on a different level of understanding. That's perfectly fine. And maybe because of that, more vocal and less organizations exist. That's one of the problems or challenges. And we have mainly government or government-related organizations. So this needs to be like really balanced with the existing communities, like the B.Sc communities or researcher communities or people like that. So there's a need for harmonization. And the interesting thing that we found was that these challenges pretty much are the challenges that we are facing in the CVD ecosystem as a whole. So we're going to keep working on this, and we're going to provide feedback, stuff like that. And that's what we're going to do. Yeah,
we truly have a representative sample of the broader population when it comes to CVD within our group, which is kind of an interesting paradigm. What we've been up to, and this kind of touches on the first challenge that Tomo was talking about, is even within our membership, we have different understandings, definitions, or perhaps in terms of our journey along developing our CVD processes, we might have different interpretations or involvement in CVD. So we've been having short member presentations from all the different memberships. They've been going really great. It's been really great for us. It's helping us get to know all the different parts of our individuals and organizations involved with our community. We have also discussed, what do we want to do? We've been meeting for 6-7 months now. We've done a great job of admiring the problem, as we like to say. It's time for us to do something. So we have a list a very narrowed down list. This list used to be much longer, but these are just some early kind of low-hanging fruit milestones that we might like to target as a community and bring our perspective. Anything that we release is TLP clear, and anything we release will have the intention of some sort of public review as well. So we get that input and opinion from the outside community, like Tomo had mentioned. How about this is a summary. How about we skip so we can have some collaboration? So this kind of just hammers home what we are talking about, but we really want to hear from you. So we've kind of seeded a little bit of a collaboration conversation. We also, if what's up here you don't want to ask or talk about, we'd take whatever questions you do have for us. But we'd really like to hear from you. If you're in the CVD community and you see that there are gaps that exist, what are those? Let us know. Let's see if we can address them. What can our community do to serve the broader ecosystem in terms of CVD? How can we do a better job of involving different parts of the community? All of that is what we're really interested in. This is where I wish our presentation was on Monday rather than Friday, because it'd give us more opportunity to talk. But please, any questions from the audience? Comments?
Hi, Lawrence here. Amazing presentation. I would like just to get to understand more why what I feel about emphasis on having this close only to government. So for context, I work a lot in the African region as part of my regional liaison role. And I also do a bit of work from a community point of view when it comes to vulnerability disclosure. And I know a lot of some of our national teams in Africa might not have that capacity to effectively operationalize a CVD program. But I know a lot of we have a decent number of community groups who are basically acting as coordinators or mediators between people from the community participating in bug bounty program who identify vulnerabilities and work through these community coordinators to have some of this vulnerability reported to governmental entities, because our national teams might not have that capacity, and also legal constraints. A lot of people will be slightly, for lack of a better word, afraid to report certain things to the government because you already have legislation that says any unauthorized access, attempts is a criminal activity. So yes, I've heard you mention that you want more diversity, more discussion, but at the same time, the membership is only limited to governmental entities. Doesn't that go against what you're trying to achieve to an extent? So maybe just your thoughts on that, on what went the thought process in limiting that membership only to governmental entities. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for the question, and it is a very valid point. And that's why we tried to emphasize that while we are a group of government organizations or entities who are working for the government in official capacity, we recognize the value and importance of involving the different parts of the ecosystem. That decision was made early on, and also once we formed the group, it seemed to be the consensus of the community itself, us being a lot of government agencies. There are other considerations to take into, other considerations we had to take into consideration that for CVD in its essence is, until the public disclosure, is a confidential process, right? Sometimes when we're having government-to-government exchanges, that has to be initially a confidential process. That's why we wanted to make sure that anything that this group outputs is publicly available, TLP clear, and we are always working and looking towards ways that we can collaborate with the different parts of the communities who don't fit that specific membership qualification. That's probably not the answer that you wanted to hear, because we value transparency, we value inclusivity, so we would prefer if there wasn't maybe that exclusive aspect. However, we're definitely exploring all the different opportunities that we can to engage with the different parts of community.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I mentioned too that we are hoping to actually have an official way to facilitate that interaction in the in the next year or so. Any other questions?
Hi there. Thanks for the presentation and the initiative. From my point of view, what you seem to be addressing are, well, or maybe I'm getting it all wrong, seem to be, let's say, administrative aspects, getting people on the same page, getting the right people to talk to each other, establish a community. From daily work with CVD, I see, and I don't see that changing here, it's all very manual and all very cumbersome and sometimes subjective and sometimes it looks a bit inefficient. So I was wondering if you are looking for technical solution in the sense of protocols, of standard formats, of an API or something, so that we can automate some parts of CVD so that what's left is actual coordination and not all the legwork of people sending messages to each other, and you have to log into a web page to look at the actual status of what's going on and who thinks who is affected and who is not. In the day-to-day of CVD, that's very time-consuming and error-prone. So I'm looking forward to whether you would be taking that on, or where else could I find that?
Yeah. No, great question, and those are discussions that have happened. I think our group, we're a young group, and those deliverables that I had up there, we're looking for the low-hanging fruit as a natural kind of first step. One thing about the makeup of our group too is even within our community, we have people who we'll just say are maybe further along, or just even by the nature of what their position is, they're more involved in the day-to-day work of CVD, where some may be a little bit more CVD adjacent, but interested and have some means for a need for tracking. So for the makeup of our community, like as a first step, how do we address and incorporate more automation, which I would love that. I think that's much needed. I totally agree 100% with that. It's not probably the first step, but a future step that we would hope to address. I don't know if you're familiar with out of SEI, the Voltron protocol that was been proposed by SEI. That is something that was brought up in discussion in the long list of deliverables that was initially released or reduced to a shorter version, but it's definitely something that's been discussed, and definitely will be something that we will look at down the road once we, kind of as a community level set, and I think more immediate action. Maybe there's even an opportunity for like a small subset of us to take those considerations, but as a broader community, I think immediately what we're hoping to accomplish is bringing everyone up to sort of a level playing field. But thank you very much for that question. Yeah. It's a very, very valid point. Yeah.
It's definitely an important point.
So once again, thank you all for joining, and thank you, Justin and Tomo.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.